This is a grossing tutorial video on how to process a prostate for carcinoma. I'm going to first review the anatomy of the specimen and talk about the margins, pertinent structures, oranging features. We have the prostate here. We have three portions of vasa deferentia and seminal vesicles, which came separate from the prostate. We've got a portion of cauterized fat here. Let's first review the anatomy of the prostate itself. If you look straight on in this direction here, we've got the apex, or the apical aspect of the prostate. There's an ill-defined bump here, which is called the verumontanum, which is a orienting feature to identify the apex of the prostate. We also know that the verumontanum is located in the posterior half of the specimen. If we turn it this direction, we're looking at the anterior aspect of the specimen, which often contains a staple line. If you have a staple line here in this area of the prostate on the anterior aspect, you can remove it after initially inking the specimen, and then you can differentially ink it and identify it as the staple line defect. We're looking at the prostate base here, and we're looking at the attached remaining portions of adnexal tissue or seminal vesicles and vasa deferentia. You've got the right vas deferens here, the left vas deferens here, which are located at the midline of the specimen if you're looking at the base. And you've got the seminal vesicles right and left here, which are more lateral to the midline. So once again, we've got the apical or apex of the specimen, the verumontanum or tanum, which is helpful in identifying the apex of the prostate. Also, it's located in the posterior half of the prostate. You've got the anterior aspect here, which often contains a staple line, but not in this case. We've got the prostate base here. We've got the attached adnexal tissue here. We've got the right side here, left side here, the posterior aspect here, and once again, separate received adnexal tissue. Looks like there's a portion of vas deferens here. Vas deferens here, portion of vas deferens here, seminal vesicles here, and some cauterized fat. Let's move on to the prosection. I'm now going to go over the prosection of the prostate for cancer. I'm going to review the specimen measurements, the inking, the pertinent descriptors, the pertinent pathology, and the plane of sectioning. As you recall, we have the prostate here, we have the three separate received portions of adnexal tissue, and we have cauterized fat. We're going to first weigh the prostate. 37 grams. We're then going to take measurements from the apex to the base. So the apex is here, base is here, which is about 3.2 cm. We've got the measurements from the left to right, 4.3 cm, and then the measurement of the prostate from anterior to posterior, which is about 4.3 cm. We've got three separate received portions of adnexal tissue measuring up to 2.2 cm and a portion of cauterized fat measuring up to 1.6 cm. Now let's start inking the specimen. What I like to do is take a probe and put it through the apex or apical aspect of the prostate and through the base or the bladder neck base margin to help me define the right and left sides of the specimen. So let's ink the right side black, and then we will ink the left side blue, and then we'll ink the separate received portions of adnexal tissue and fat differentially, green, red, orange, and then no ink. 2, 3. Now that we've inked the prostate, we're going to start taking our sections. We have the apex of the prostate here, and we know that because we've got the little ill-defined bump here, the verumontanum or tanum. We know this is the posterior aspect of the specimen. This is the base of the prostate, or the bladder neck base margin here. We've got our adnexal structures here, right side, left side. We've got our vas deferens, right side and left side here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a cone type of section here and a shave of the base, and then perpendicular sections of the seminal vesicles to the base on each side. Usually the case is I'll have to do a cone biopsy usually on the base and usually a shave of the apex, but it's different on this particular specimen. So let's get started. So we're going to get a section of the apex of the specimen, of the apical margin here, by doing a cone type of excision. Okay. Okay, so there's our apex, or apical cone biopsy. Now let's go over to the base, and like I say, usually I have to do a cone of the base and a shave of the apex. So this is nice. We're just going to do a shave. Okay, so we got the apex, we got the base. Okay, and I usually rinse my blade with water, or wipe it down with some gauze, wipe down the blade with some gauze before I go on to doing my next section. So we've got the vas deferens ends here. We got the right side and the left side. So I'm going to go ahead and take those right away so I don't forget them. Okay. So here's our left vas deferens margin, and here's our right vas deferens margin here. Okay, and you can keep them straight if you put the right on the right side of your cutting board and this on the left side. Okay, and now let's take our seminal vesicle sections here in relationship to base. Now, some people will take the relationship of the seminal vesicles to the base of the prostate in a parallel fashion like this, but here the pathologists like us to do it this way. And what I usually do is I'll put a slice in, and in the area where I think there's going to be seminal vesicles, and in this case there actually is some pigment here which indicates this is seminal vesicle here, and so I'm going to do another parallel section to that, and this is going to be my right side seminal vesicle to base section, and then on this side I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take, here's some seminal vesicle on the left side, and I'm going to take a perpendicular section to that as well. So I'll cut down, and then I'll cut across like this. Okay, that's going to be my left side, and then this is going to be my right side. Okay, so far here's the right seminal vesicle in relationship to prostate base. Here's my left seminal vesicle in relationship to prostate base. I've got the left vas deferens end here. I've got the right vas deferens end here. I've got the apex of the prostate. I've got the base of the prostate. I'm going to move on and show you how to take these perpendicular sections of the apex and base next. We are now moving on to sectioning the apical margin of the prostate and then the bladder neck base margin. So we've got our apex apex or apical margin here, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to divide it into the right and left halves based off the inking. And so we got black here, blue here, so we got right side, left side. We got the opening here, the urethral opening, or the apical or apex of the prostate margin. So we're going to cut this in half and divide it into right and left sides. And then we're going to take perpendicular sections on each side. So we got the right side here. I'm doing perpendicular sections, okay? And we got the left side here, which I'm going to do perpendicular sections as well. So we've got this divided up into the right side apical margin, left side apical margin, perpendicular sections. I'm going to wipe my blade and move on to the prostate base, or the bladder neck base margin here. And we're going to do the same thing. We have the opening here. We're going to divide this into right and left halves. And then we're going to take our perpendicular sections of these, just like this. So there's the right side. And then we have the left side. And I'm going to keep these divided. And there you go. So we got the apex, apical margins. We got the bladder neck base margins here, perpendicular sections, in relationship to the urethral opening. Let's move on to the prosection of the prostate now. I'm now going to begin sectioning the prostate from apex to base. We've got our base here, our apex here. We've already taken our margins here and here. And we've taken our sections of the seminal vesicles in relationship to the base of the prostate. So we're going to section the prostate at approximately 3-4 millimeter intervals. And look at the gross appearance. I kind of let the weight of the blade do the majority of the work and try not to put too much pressure on the prostate in order to get really nice thin sections. So I'm just going to continue taking these sections, or making these slices through the prostate from apex to base, and we'll see what we find grossly. And once again, I want to kind of reiterate that some places will take parallel sections of the attached adnexal structures or seminal vesicles and vasa differentia to the prostate base. Just an FYI. Let's move on to sampling. We are now looking at the section prostate from apex to base. We've got the right side here, left side here. If you look at the cut surfaces, there are no prominent nodules or dominant nodules identified. The cut surfaces have kind of a tan yellow variegated cut surface appearance, and there's some ill-defined nodularity surrounding the transition or the periurethral zone here. But I don't see any obvious cancer. In my experience, the higher the Gleason score, the more obvious the cancer. BPH, or benign prostatic hypertrophy, can have a variety of appearances. So I usually describe these cut surfaces on this particular prostate as tan, yellow, variegated, and then I mentioned the transition or the periurethral zone, tan and nodular. We're going to now sample or take our samples of the prostate. We're going to concentrate on the posterior aspect of the prostate itself. I'm going to go ahead and pre-cut these, and then we'll place these into the cassettes. You can now see where I'm taking my sections from. I'm going to sequentially take them from apex to base, the posterior aspect, okay, and I'm going to alternate right and left sides. So let's move on to the last of the remaining structures that actually came separate from the specimen. With the remaining tissue, the three portions of adnexal tissue here and the portion of cauterized fat, we're just going to section and make sure there's no obvious tumor in this adnexal tissue and portion of fat. And then we're just going to submit representative sections of these portions of tissue and the last two cassettes. I don't see any obvious tumor, so we'll just sample representative. Let's now go over the sections submitted for this case. We've got blocks 1 through 22. We've got our apex sections here, apical margin, divided into the right and left sides. We've got the base margin, or the bladder neck base margin here, divided into right and left sides. We've got the prostate from here to here, submitted sequentially from apex to base, alternating right and left posterior aspect. In this block here, we have the prostate base in relationship to attached seminal vesicle for the right side. We have it for the left side here. And then if you recall, the vas deferens ends I sampled from the prostate. The right side's here, the left side's here. And then in these last two blocks, 21 and 22, I have representative from the separate received adnexal tissue and portion of cauterized fat. Thank you for watching.